It's one of the biggest questions our generation has had to face. Who shot first? Fans all over the world have debated this question for almost a decade now. But why do we argue so hotly about something that seems so trivial? It's because we love Han Solo. And with Disney announcing that this beloved character will be starring in his own movie in 2018, it's anyone's guess as to whether he'll become an even more iconic anti-hero, or if this new film just won't cut it. But there's a few things they'll definitely need to get right. I'm the movie chef, and we're going to talk about the 4 steps for a perfect Han Solo movie. So what's the very first thing that the Mouse House is going to need to get right to give us a Han Solo we'll all love as much as the original? You've probably already guessed it. They need to cast the right person. Now, I obviously don't work for Lucasfilm, so I'm only making educated guesses, but I think I have a pretty good argument for casting the right Han. One of the luckiest things George Lucas ever did was to discover Harrison Ford. Ford's acting career had been mostly unsuccessful until he was cast in Lucas's film American Graffiti. And from there, things only got better. He ended up portraying 2 of the most iconic characters to ever be on film. But with rumors suggesting that this will be a movie about a young Han Solo, you have to wonder, will lightning strike twice? Can we even hope for an actor to pull off Solo as well as Harrison did? I think we can, but I don't think it's a job for just anyone. The internet is dripping with listicles about what actors could play the role of everyone's favorite smuggler, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but I really think that there's only one person who's already famous that would make sense for the role. Chris Pratt. Just kidding. He's way too old to play a young Han Solo. What I was going to say is Tye Sheridan. Now, obviously Tye has the looks to replace Harrison Ford, but that's not the main reason I'm casting him. The kid, and by kid I mean someone who's basically my age, has a pretty amazing resume. His first movie was Tree of Life, where he acted alongside Brad Pitt. And then he went on to star in the movie Mud with Matthew McConaughey. And after that, he was in the weirdly good Nicolas Cage movie Joe. Do you see a pattern? Tye seems to have the acting chops to be in 3 movies in a row that all scored pretty darn high on Rotten Tomatoes. Not only that, but in a lot of his movies, he plays the exact down-on-his-luck kid that a young Han Solo is bound to be. Now, the fact that he's going to be in the next big X-Men movie is really just icing on the cake. That means he's already got experience now doing a big sci-fi action movie. It just seems too perfect to ignore. Tye has got to be in this movie. That is, of course, unless they find an unknown talent to cast in the role. I'm actually a really big fan of finding new people out there and making them into movie stars. The perfect Han Solo could be the star of some high school drama department right now. Or, the host of a little-known YouTube show. Anyways, moving on to our next ingredient, the right plot structure. You've heard the saying that there's only 7 stories people really tell? Well, I don't know if that's exactly true, but I do know that this Han Solo movie is going to need a solid plot. You can imagine a lot of different ways for it to go, but one of the first ideas that comes to mind is a bad guy turned hero kind of story. This is essentially what they used in movies like Guardians of the Galaxy, Despicable Me, or even to a certain extent the original Star Wars trilogy. But I don't think that this is really what's best for a young Han movie. This is one of the problems you run into when making a prequel. You can't solve all of the hero's character flaws. You can only bring them to the point where we saw them in the original movie. Han needs to change over the course of this film for sure, but he has to change into the person that we saw in A New Hope. Or at least someone who could eventually become that person. That means he has to become this cynical, shooting-first space criminal that we all know and love over the course of this prequel. And what plot structure would be perfect for this? Cinderella. You heard me right. But don't worry, I'm not suggesting we insert any singing mice into the Star Wars canon. I'm just talking about the basic rags to riches structure of how the story of Cinderella progresses. To see a recent example of how this could work with Han's criminal background, you don't have to look any further than the box office and critical hit Wolf of Wall Street. Now, the movie should obviously be pretty family-friendly, like all of the Star Wars saga, but I'm talking about the way Wolf of Wall Street takes a regular, unlucky guy and turns him into a confident, successful crook. And the entire time, you're completely rooting for Leonardo DiCaprio's character, despite all the awful, illegal things he's doing. That's the exact kind of story you want for a Han Solo. You want to see him go from being a poor, untrusting kid to being the kind of awful person we all love to see succeed. But how will he succeed in the criminal underworld of the Star Wars universe? Well, that's easy. He'll just have to make the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs. Yes, I know that technically parsecs is a unit of distance, so that statement doesn't really make sense, but what I'm getting at is the fact that this, like all good prequels, should not only make Han into the smuggler we all know and love, but it should show us some of his history we've been wanting to see ever since we were first introduced to him. Now, I know that there's a temptation here to do too much to connect this movie with the originals. George Lucas became the best example of this when he made the infamous prequel trilogy. All we really wanted to see then was Anakin becoming a Sith Lord and the Jedi fighting in the Clone Wars, but what we got was Princess Leia's mother coincidentally also being royalty, and Jabba the Hutt seeing Anakin pod race, and probably worst of all, Boba Fett's father being the source of the clones' DNA. This was way too many callbacks and characters from the original trilogy for us as an audience to believe, and it's exactly what you want to avoid doing in a Han Solo prequel. But there are two things that you definitely do want: Chewbacca and the Kessel Run. First off, we'll tackle Chewbacca. Now, obviously you could have a Han Solo movie without his furry friend, since they can meet in the time between this movie and A New Hope, but I actually think we would really benefit from featuring Chewie, mainly because of the pair that Disney's chosen to direct, Phil Lord and Chris Miller. These two have proven with the Jump Street movies that they know how to do a buddy flick. And, I mean, the relationship between Han and Chewie really isn't that different from the one that Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill share in those movies. Yes, Jonah Hill is totally Chewbacca in this comparison. Sorry, Jonah. My point is that the movie could really only be improved by adding Chewbacca into the mix, and who could play a younger, possibly shorter Chewie? Maybe an actor who's used to brilliantly playing animal-like characters? Now, the Kessel Run isn't as important as having Chewbacca in the movie, but I do think that it would be a good touch. There's a lot of ways you could use it, too. It could be the way that Han breaks into the smuggling business toward the beginning of the movie, or it could be used as the big climactic scene toward the end. Heck, you could even just show that it's a lie Han makes up to fool people into thinking that he has talent as a pilot. Just seeing him first craft the lie that he would later tell Obi-Wan Kenobi in his original iconic scene would be really fun. This only leaves one problem. The kind of movie I've been describing certainly sounds entertaining, but it also makes Solo a little bit too successful. When we first see him in A New Hope, he isn't a rich crime lord, he's a lowly smuggler that owes way too much money to Jabba the Hutt. Which is why the final step is to give Han a love interest. Now, I'm not saying the story should be a romance, far from it. I think the relationship between Padme and Anakin was one of the most boring parts of the already boring prequels, but I do think it would make a lot of sense to have someone who not only could catch Han's eye, but who could also teach him a lesson. After all, Han isn't actually evil in the original movies. He's not a good guy. He murdered Greedo without a second thought, but he's also not really a villain. Greedo was a bad dude that was planning on either killing Han or delivering him to Jabba. And I think that this could be a lesson that Han learns over the course of this movie. Yes, he becomes a successful criminal, and yes, he's okay with breaking the law, but at the end of the day, he should learn that he's not that bad. And I think that the most organic way for him to learn that about himself would be for him to fall in love with a woman who's also a not-so-bad criminal. At first, he could feel divided between his desire to become a successful smuggler and becoming the better man she sees in him. And what really matters, when he has a choice between either scoring the best smuggling job ever or saving her life, he learns who he really is by choosing to save this girl he's begun to care for. Now, that's just been my recipe for the perfect Han Solo movie. Do you agree? Disagree? Do you even think Disney should be making more Star Wars prequels? Let me know in the comments, and as always, be sure to subscribe. Until next time, I'm the Movie Chef. Hi guys, thanks for watching. I hope you liked the video. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, you know the drill. If there's anything I talk about in the video, I try to link to it down in the doobly-doo, so let me know if I forgot anything and I can add that. I'll be trying to upload these once a week, so if you want to watch last week's episode, you can click down there. And if you want to watch next week's episode, just tune in around the same time. I don't think there's anything else, so I'll see you guys next week.